The warm weather in the south of England has now been officially classed as a heatwave.
People head to the coast on the hottest day of the year so far. We'll be with some of those enjoying the sun in Southend. But it's not fun for everyone, as Londoners tell us how difficult it is working in this heat.
Tonight, a weather warning for London and the southeast on the hottest day of the year so far. Fun for some, but with temperatures peaking at 32.7 degrees Celsius, the advice is to stay safe in the sun and in the water.
Now, it's been an exceptionally warm day in many parts of England and Wales. London and the southeast of England were the warmest places by far, with the temperature exceeding 32 degrees. A health alert was issued across those areas, with people urged to check on the vulnerable and to be aware of signs of heat exhaustion. It was much cooler across areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scotland, highs of 17 degrees in Glasgow, 18 degrees in Belfast. Now, the temperature record for the year was broken for the third consecutive day. Scientists say that periods of intense heat are becoming more frequent. They're lasting longer because of global warming. Now, today's maximum temperature, 32.7 degrees, was recorded at Santon Downham, which is in Suffolk. It exceeded 2021's highest UK reading of 32.3 degrees. But the heatwave is due to end over the weekend. Our correspondent Celestina Olulode reports now.
Cooling down on the River Cam in Cambridge. Who needs to queue at a busy airport when temperatures in parts of the UK are higher today than many popular holiday destinations? Visitors sought shade at one of the country's hottest spots, Cambridge University Botanic Garden.
We're pretty sort of well equipped at home because we've got a little paddling pool for this guy and lots of fans. You know, it felt like it was quite like this last year, so we were equipped for hot weather, yeah.
Terrible, the hay fever's just been the worst it's ever been.
Yeah, he's been sniffing all day long.
Yeah, that's nice.
But we thought we'd come out and just get like a little spot in the shade.
It looks lovely outside, and then you come outside and find out it's actually 32 degrees, which is pretty impressive. It's very pleasant in the botanical garden, so.
Further south, Londoners sizzled in the sunshine. A level 3 heat health alert has been issued here, also covering the southeast and the east of England. It means high temperatures could impact health services. Water sports kept some people in Derbyshire cool. Temperatures here weren't quite as high as down south, but still high enough across much of the north of England to prompt a level 1 heat health alert. But it's not all ice lollies and Lidos. There's been rain in Scotland and Northern Ireland, keeping temperatures down.
Go on, Mitch.
Time to splash in the paddling pool at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home to stop this rescue dog overheating. Hard to believe it's still only mid-June. With months more of the summer to come, the question is how many spells of weather like this are ahead. Well, here at the Cambridge University Botanic Gardens, temperatures peaked today 32 degrees Celsius at 2 p.m. Now look, just to put that into some context for you, according to the Met Office, the average temperature for this part of the country at this time of year is 20 degrees Celsius. So look, already top temperatures, and we're only into mid-June.
For the third time this week, we've had yet another hottest day of the year. Temperatures hit a high of 32.7 degrees Celsius. That's almost 91 Fahrenheit in Santon Downham in Suffolk this afternoon. It's not quite the high that was predicted, but hot nonetheless. But as people try to cool off, there are warnings to take care around water. Just yesterday, one man sadly died in a lake in Cheltenham. The heat even forced the Royal Ascot to break with convention and relax its dress code. Our correspondent Dan Rivers has the story from around the country.
We will be experiencing extremely strong currents today.
We might now be officially enduring a heat wave, but for the lifeguards at Littlehampton, this means a potentially dangerous combination of searing air temperatures with a very cold sea and strong tides. There were plenty of people enticed into the water today, though, but there was a warning from those who know these conditions can be lethal. What are your biggest concerns on a hot day like today?
We have a huge amount of rescues and situations that we have to attend where someone has experienced cold water shock. It normally ends up lasting about 30 seconds or so, and in order to prevent people from getting into too much panic, we're asking everyone, if you get into trouble in the water, then please float to live. So this technique involves laying on your back, using your arms and legs to sort of keep you afloat, resist that urge to thrash around.
In Cheltenham, the police have confirmed a 37-year-old man died at a lake in Pittville Park after getting into difficulties last night. The craze for wild swimming prompting new warnings about the dangers.
People don't really realise the temperature. It's a lot colder than what people think when they first jump in. And then it's that what lies beneath is the danger as well. So when people jump in, they could be jumping into shallow water.
But for many, the main danger today was from sunburn and sunstroke. At the Isle of Wight Festival, there was plenty of help on hand.
5 layers of factor 50 on. every hour. You
And a mum, which goes like this often.
I'm just hoping I don't burn.
It is quite nice, I love it, but we're trying to be safe and remember to drink our water and put our sun cream on. So yeah, we've been quite good so far.
Yeah, it's really hot, but we bought this shaded trolley so they can get under there, and plenty of sunscreen, plenty of water.
In Liverpool, school children were being given free sunblock, part of a campaign to fight skin cancer amid a cost of living crisis, which means many families can't afford sunscreen. At Ascot, temperatures were sweltering not just for those competing. Spectating was also fast becoming a challenge, even for those hiding under the very largest of brims. It was hot enough to warrant an official change in dress code, with gentlemen allowed to remove their top hats and ties, some going even further, as Britain basked in temperatures which are threatening to topple records once again. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
OK, let's see how the rest of the country's looking. Richard Payne's in Cheltenham at the scene of that death in Down's report. Hamish Alscary is in London St James's Park, and Lewis Warner is in Skegness. Let's go to you first, Richard. What happened there is a reminder of the dangers of swimming in open water, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes. It's a beautiful evening here tonight, just as it was last night when this man came down to the water here in the middle of Cheltenham and decided to go seemingly for a cooling dip, but he soon got into trouble. Emergency services were called. They were quickly here, but they were tragically unable to save him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. His death is not being treated as suspicious, but as you say, it is a reminder that as many of us may be tempted to go into our waterways for a cooling dip, of the dangers that lurk beneath. The water experts, as we've heard, tell us that the cold temperatures of these waters are the big problem, unlike the temperatures we're experiencing on dry land. But it's certainly tragic consequences for one man and his family yesterday.
Well, here in London, it's still very hot indeed, even under the shade of the trees here in St James's Park. As evening descends, of course, the temperature will begin to reduce, but just a couple of hours ago the temperature here was 32.3 degrees, making it one of the hottest places across the country. You can see people all around here enjoying themselves in the heat with a cold drink in hand, but there has been a warning today from the London Fire Brigade saying the high temperature means a higher risk of fires and to take extra precautions, and there's still an NHS level 3 warning in place for London, the South East and the East. Look, it's Friday night, it's a summer's evening with hot weather. People are going to look to enjoy themselves, but the message is make sure you do it safely.
Well, here in Skegness on the Lincolnshire coast, temperatures have been pushing 30 degrees. Not quite as hot in other parts of the country, like the south of England, as we've been hearing, but nonetheless, lots of people coming here to enjoy the sunshine. We've spoken to people who've come from right across the Midlands and the north of England to come and enjoy the beach here. And people have largely been doing so safely. As we've heard about, the water can be a danger. The temperature here that we're experiencing on the ground is very different to the temperature that's in the water behind us. And we know that cold water can have adverse effects on swimmers, particularly less experienced swimmers as well. People also slapping on a lot of sun cream here, but largely, as we've heard from the rest of the country, enjoying themselves in the sun and enjoying themselves safely. OK,
Lewis, thanks very much. And also thank you to Richard and Dan. Well, Lucy Versami is by the seaside in Broadstairs in Kent for us. So, Lucy, just how hot did it get across the southern part of the UK today?
Good evening, Charlene. Yes, it's been an exceptionally hot day given how early it is in the summer season. We've seen temperatures soar across the bulk of England and Wales. Heat wave-like conditions as we expected, as forecast. And these are temperatures in the shade, can you believe? For much of England and Wales, we saw those temperatures in excess of 30 degrees, around 32 degrees in the capital. And the hot spot was actually Santon Downham in Suffolk, very close to 33 degrees here. The coasts have offered a bit more of a relief from that heat with a coastal sea breeze, hence my location this evening. Further north into Scotland, the far north of England and Northern Ireland, a very different scene. It's been significantly cooler and fresher with cloud and some rain, just 15 degrees in Glasgow and Northern Ireland, but flip fortunes into the weekend. It's the turn of Scotland and Northern Ireland to get better, drier, brighter conditions.
Hello and welcome to the programme on this rather warm Friday evening. In fact, if you haven't guessed or felt it, yes, it has been the hottest day of the year so far. 32.4 Celsius recorded at Heathrow Airport. A real challenge for anyone trying to work in this heat or for vulnerable Londoners. For others, however, this heatwave as it's now been classed, has been a chance to head outside, or if you're lucky, to the seaside. And that is where we can join Wendy this evening. She is in Southend. Hi there.
Hello, where it's lovely and sunny and with a very nice breeze blowing as well. But yes, as you said, temperatures well up there today. It's still in the 30s here in Southend, and we've seen rocketing temperatures across Europe. In France and Spain, highs of 44 degrees, and today some of it got here. Now, it has been classed a heat wave, and that is defined by 3 consecutive days where the daily maximum meets or exceeds the threshold. Now, the threshold, interestingly, has been revised this year. We're now comparing it to an averaging period from 1991 to 2020, which is a response to and indication of our warming climate. Now, of course, on Wednesday, this triggered a heat health alert. We're on level 3, and that's just a mechanism from the Met Office to warn health professionals to plan accordingly for this kind of weather so that they can give the best care to vulnerable people, because for some this kind of weather can be extraordinarily dangerous. It's great if you can come here if you haven't had to work today and get down to the seaside, but for those of us who have been in work or at school, it's been a little bit tricky, as Luke Hanrahan has been finding out.
There were queues around the corner for ice cream in Walthamstow this morning. A roaring trade on a roasting hot day, sweltering outside, but even hotter on board.
I mean, it's really hard. We've got a fan, but that doesn't help at all. We do everything to put a smile on adults and kids' faces. So that's what mainly we do. That's our priority.
That's your motivation?
Yeah, our motivation, that's correct.
As some Londoners took the day off and others spent longer out at lunch, kitchens in restaurants across the capital were busy. Those inside them doing their best not to sizzle.
Don't mind the heat. I mean, as long as they keep hydrated, it does become a little bit difficult sometimes, but we don't really feel it too much. The kitchen's always hot.
London is hotter than Kingston, Jamaica today, but unlike Kingston, London is a capital city that isn't geared for heat like this. The advice is to seek shade, stay cool and stay hydrated.
Inside here is actually quite cold, but I try to spend doing things like where it doesn't necessarily need the heat and keep the hot jobs to the evening.
Jason, one of thousands of London's mechanics, having to take hydration seriously. Those with hands-on jobs needing to pace themselves and keep cool.
What goes through your head when it's this hot? How much more difficult is it?
Oh, yeah, it does get difficult. You start sweating a lot, makes you more tired, but just keep drinking, carry on. Look forward to 5 o'clock. That's it, go home.
And what will you do at the end of the day?
Probably go home, have a beer, have a chill.
This evening, many will be looking forward to a well-earned weekend break, respite from a hot week at work, and perhaps an ice lolly or two. Luke Hanrahan, BBC London.
But For the lucky ones, well, a trip to the seaside. And I spoke to one family who'd headed from London to Southend here and brought the entire kitchen with them.
We come from City London.
And you've come very well prepared, I see.
Yeah, we bring today's dolma. It's Iraqi food and it's Kurdish. Yeah.
That's amazing. You've come so well prepared for the hot day on the beach.
Yes, yeah, with the kids.
And I can say they did share some with me after that as well. And there were other people who are enjoying themselves today, I'm sure. Right across London, there were folk heading out into the parks and green spaces just to grab a little bit of sunshine and fine weather, have a picnic in lunchtime, and perhaps are heading out now to enjoy as it cools off a little bit. Or they headed to their local Lido. The Charlton one was absolutely packed full of people today, and the heat beaten by a dip in those crystal waters. And of course, it's not just us that have to keep cool, it's our pets as well. And over at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, well, they do that by feeding them little lollipops to keep them cool. Now, the heat has peaked now, as far as I know, and you will get a more detailed forecast, of course, at the end of the programme. From here, this lovely, warm, somewhat breezy, but beautiful beach at Southend, Riz, it's back to you.
We're not jealous, not one little bit, Wendy. No. Take care. Thanks again. The water's where it's at. OK, Ben, our weather presenter, joins me. Hi there. I know you'll give us a full weather report later on, but I wanted to chat to you about the temperatures that we're seeing and what areas in London have been most affected by this weather.
Yeah, so it's been quite widespread, actually, Riz. We've had temperatures up into the 30s across pretty much all of London and the southeast, but the highest temperatures of all today have been recorded just to the west of London. A bit of a dead heat between Kew Gardens and Heathrow Airport, both of those getting up to 32.4 degrees. Not quite the highest in the UK. That was in East Anglia, very close to 33.
Is still high.
32.7 is pretty high. It's higher than we would expect at this time of year. Temperatures in June should be closer to sort of the low 20s Celsius. It's not unprecedented. It's not anything we haven't seen before, but yes, it is unusual and it is very early in the year to see it.
So that said, it is unusual for this time of year. Why are we experiencing this heat wave, as it's now classed?
Well, the source is the southwest of Europe, which has been heating up for a few days now. We've had a big area of high pressure parked across Spain, Portugal, southern France, and they've had temperatures there into the low 40s Celsius. We saw 43 across parts of southern Spain today, 42 in the south of France. France actually has reached 40 at the earliest point in the year on record. So it has been extraordinarily hot, unusually hot in that part of the world. And then what we've had is a southerly wind, and the wind direction dictates the kind of weather we're going to get because it tells us what air we're bringing in our direction. So those southerly winds have brought some of that hot air from the near continent in our direction, grazing into the southeast of the UK. That's why we've seen those values above 32 degrees today. But by the weekend or over the weekend, we change that wind direction and things will slowly get a little cooler. But I think there's one more hot day to come.
Good evening. You may have noticed it's hot out there, hotter than Jamaica, in fact, with temperatures in the capital reaching 32.7 degrees Celsius, making it officially the hottest day of the year so far. Well, for many, it's been an opportunity to enjoy the sunshine. It's come with a weather warning. People are being advised to stay safe in the sun, especially if cooling off in any water. Well, Sally is at a very busy King's Cross for us this evening. And Sally, from Southend to the city, it's been a scorcher, and you've been out with your thermometer, haven't you?
I certainly have. Do you know, I'm here at King's Cross and it is a party atmosphere. They've finished work, they've finished school and they're out to have a nice time. Latest temperatures just come in, 32.7 degrees at Heathrow, which makes it the joint hottest place in the country so far today, and of course the hottest day of the year. So we've been out and about finding out how people have been having fun in the sun, how they've managed to beat the heat and, most importantly, stay safe.
In Southend, they know how to celebrate the sun. Hottest day of the year, bring it on. But in central London, things are a bit stickier.
Yeah, I wish it was like a tiny bit cooler because it's way too warm here and it's quite heavy too, so I just know, just like a good icy drink.
Finally, we've got some real good hot sun. I can feel it in my bones. I'm feeling good.
With a top temperature of 32 in London today, it's unusual for June, but experts say extremes that were once rare are becoming less so.
The 10 hottest years in the last 100 have all been in this century. So we continue to break heat records as the Earth gets warmer. And the reason for that is that events that used to be very rare now become less rare as the Earth and the UK heats up.
To monitor my commute today, I took a thermometer to see just what we were up against.
So it's just gone 8:30 and the temperature has just gone up to 25 degrees on this air-conditioned train. It's actually still really pleasant and some people are still in long sleeves.
But the Central Line, one of London's hottest, told a different story. I wasn't laughing for long when I saw this.
It's now 2:45 in the afternoon and the thermometer has just reached 35 degrees. There's a little bit of a breeze coming in from the window, but it's very hot and good luck to anyone at rush hour.
The urge to cool off calls some to the Thames and its foreshore.
Of course, with temperatures like these, water, such as the Thames, looks very appealing, but this fast-flowing tidal river is potentially lethal. And just last night, the RNLI team here at Chiswick had 2 call-outs to people in trouble in the water. If someone's thinking of dipping their toe in the Thames or maybe going after their dog that's in trouble, anything like that, what would you say to them?
Primarily, to not enter the Thames. It looks inviting on a day like today, but it's got very strong currents and various other problems on the river. They can find themselves sucked under or caught on various different bits of infrastructure. So we would say avoid going in the water and, as I say, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard.
Chessington Zoo was treating its residents to paddling pools and ice lollies, giving the kids a few ideas on how to stay cool.
Drink loads of water. Yep. I'm wearing a hat to not get sunburned. Yep. And I'm going to eat loads of ice lollies.
That sounds like a tip I might just take.
With me now is GP Dr. Natalie Rao. Thanks for joining us, Natalie. Let's start off, first of all, with the fact that the Met Office issued a level 3 heat warning. What does that mean?
Basically, it means that temperatures over the next couple of days are extremely high. It's so high that they could cause lots of physical illness like sunstroke, heat stroke, and so it's a safety warning, essentially, for people to be careful when they're out and about.
Not many people might know this, but more than 2,000 people in England alone die from heat-related conditions. Sorry to put a dampener on things. What are you seeing on the ground in your surgery?
So actually, when people are at that stage where they could sort of pass away from the effects of heat, they end up in A&E and in hospitals. So we don't really see that so much in primary care. But things to look out for are headaches, feeling thirsty, excessive sweating, feeling slightly confused or drowsy. Those are all serious signs to take heed of.
Are you seeing anything else that's heat-related at the moment? Some people have been talking about pollen.
Yes, hay fever is very much a problem at the moment. I've had multiple consultations today.
More than normal?
More than normal, much more than normal, but maybe 4 to 5 today. Yeah. So people are really suffering with itchy eyes, itchy nose, sore throat, and it's actually quite unbearable for some people. So we're seeing a lot of that, and we're trying to give lots of advice on how we can target those symptoms.
Anecdotally, I've actually heard the same. Now, just for a little bit of balance, Natalie, we talk about being careful in the heat and how dangerous the sun or too much sun can be, but it can also be good for us as well, can't it?
Absolutely. So sun is essential for vitamin D. It's our main source of vitamin D. So it is really good to be out in the sun and get some of that vitamin D. However, if you're out in the sun between the hours of 11 and 3 when it's this hot, you're at high risk of sunburn, which can be very, very dangerous. And of course, it increases your risk of skin cancer. So it's very important to wear SPF when you're out and about. Reapply it every 2 hours because it doesn't work if you just put it on in the morning. Have to reapply it. Stay hydrated. Most people will suffer with dehydration in this sort of heat and sun, so that's very important. And just try and wear loose, comfortable clothing, cover up your shoulders, wear hats and sunglasses if you can, and all that will help.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm quite yet to master the clothing.